Welcome to Baker Bott's Staying Ahead of the Curve, Considerations for the First Quarter 2020 Earnings Season. I'm Danny David, co-chair of the firm's litigation department and a partner in our securities and shareholder litigation practice group. AJ Erickson is a partner in our corporate department and represents public and private businesses in a broad range of corporate M&A, capital markets, and securities law matters. He will be covering the recent public statement issued by SEC Chair Jay Clayton and Director of the Division of Corporation Finance, William Hinman, regarding the importance of COVID-19 related disclosures and forward-looking information in upcoming earnings releases and analyst and investor calls.
Thanks, Danny. At this point, I'm sure that you all have read, and many on your management teams have also read, the statement that was put out by the SEC Commissioner and the Chair of Corp Fin. It's a pretty striking document. It's interesting in that it's eminently readable. It's very practical in its advice, and it's not legalese, and underscores what everybody knew going into this earnings season, that this is not going to be routine. It's something very different. I think part of that difference is that the audience is a little bit different from the traditional earnings call. Normally, you'd be speaking primarily to the analyst community that follows your company and reaching investors through them. I think this time you've got a much broader audience that's going to include employees who wonder, how is the company that I work at doing? What are they doing? How are we positioned? And as we'll talk about more moving along, there'll be, we anticipate an increase in interest from the sharks who are normally looking at securities disclosure as an opportunity to make some money. But a big part of what makes disclosure this season so different is that it's very forward-looking. Normally you would be speaking about the quarter that just occurred and the successes that you've had and what you see going down the road. I think for this quarter, and certainly the statement acknowledges it, people aren't very interested in how the last quarter went because in many instances, the predictive value of the most recent quarter is going to be almost zero. All of the focus is on today. Where do you stand today operationally, financially? What are the things that you're doing to protect your business and your people? And what things have you learned so far, and what trends are you seeing that might affect both your company and may also be relevant to broader efforts by the public and private sectors to address this once in a lifetime, hopefully, challenge that we're all facing. A big part of that is being encouraged to use forward-looking statements. Jessica will speak about it more, but even though the SEC is saying that they're not going to be as focused on, or that they're going to be generous and not second-guessing what companies say looking forward, that doesn't mean that the plaintiffs are taking their foot off the gas. But really, there's the same invitation being given to companies this quarter as in any quarter, which is tell us what trends you see, what are the knowns, what are the known unknowns, and help investors see the company through management's eyes. It's just that in this instance, there are so many more unknowns than knowns for a lot of companies, and those management insights will be particularly critical in understanding how the company is adapting their practices, what they're doing to stay afloat in this environment, and also how they're positioning themselves for continuing to do business and to execute on their strategy at a future date that may look a little bit different from today. So a big part of that is is to have very specific disclosure. The customary practice of dusting off the last filing you made, making tweaks at the margins, may not be good enough this quarter, and you're going to have to really think hard and have a lot of discussions internally with both financial and operating teams and people throughout the organization to really get a feel for what's happening, how is our supply chain affected, how are our customers affected, what have been changes in demand, what does our liquidity look like today, what are our anticipated cash needs, what are projects that investors have been looking at for a long time that we're putting on hold or scaling back our ambitions or refocusing the company temporarily in a different direction. And really that's going to go beyond the financial statements, which are so backward looking, and really get into company strategy and planning. And part of that also is that the SEC is encouraging companies to be transparent where they're seeking financial assistance under the CARES Act or other programs, to be transparent about things like borrowing capacity or whether you've drawn down your revolver to give yourself more runway. And so I think one of the big takeaways is that prep this quarter is going to be a lot more labor intensive and time intensive and require more judgment than a typical first quarter earnings presentation would normally entail.